Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of building a serverless Android application using Huawei's AppGallery Connect services. It's been a while since the last episode. It's been at least a couple of weeks now, and things have been very busy around here, which is unfortunately why I haven't been able to get another video out. But we're back with the next episode. Today, we're looking at a bug that we encountered at the end of last episode. We're going to get that bug squashed. And then we're going to start looking about actually sending and receiving data using the cloud database and make our first post. And hopefully all will go well this time. Let's take a look. So the first thing we're going to go through is this bug that we had and where this bug came from. What was this bug? Blah, 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 blah. Now, where the bug was actually coming in, I have obviously at this point fixed the issue, so I can't replicate it. But basically, when we were trying to create our object type, so in our authentication manager, I should say, we create an instance of the cloud database manager, and then we go through and call this create object type. This was falling over and showing us an error message. And that's kind of where we left it. So if we have a look on the web side of things, there's actually this, it's this page. There's actually under the guides, AppGallery Connect, Cloud Database, we've got this error codes section, which is very helpful because we need to know what the error code meant. And for our case, it was this one, error code 17, the object type information does not match. Ensure that the object type matches the version. So, we knew at this point that it was definitely something to do with our object type definitions. So, back in the code, I had a look through and I had a look at our objects. Our user and everything else. And what we had originally was we had this class was extending a base cloud database zone object, which in itself extended this cloud database zone object. That was the issue. So the issue was the validation that goes on when we are creating this object type ensures that the object extends directly the cloud database zone object. It has to directly extend that. We'd changed that to extend a base object, and the reason why we had done that is because we have in here this update max ID method where we check an object's ID and check to see if it's greater than the current ID, and if it is, we set the max ID to be that. Now, that was all well and good, but we needed to have a base object that we knew that the generic was going to extend so that we could have this method available, and we knew that that method would be available irrelevant of what type of object it actually is. So that's why we've done the base object. But unfortunately, because of the checks that are done when you're setting those objects up, that doesn't work. And that resulted in the error that we're getting. So we had to change it back so that these all extended the cloud database zone object. So that was a fixed hierarchy. We couldn't change that. And realistically, we should probably have thought about that when it, specifically says do not edit. It was going to probably or possibly be an issue. Now, of course, I've still gone ahead and edited these files, but what we've done instead is we've created a very simple interface, which defines the one getID method, which is the method that we need. So we make sure that all our objects, in fact, implement that method, that interface. And we know that they already do because we already have the getID method because they all have the ID variable. So we didn't actually have to change anything else. We just had to say, right, we're going to go back to extending the cloud database zone object, and it implements this interface. That way, in our Cloud Database Manager, for the generic, we could specify that it both extends the Cloud Database Zone object, which it does, and the has ID interface. Now, it's worth pointing out here, it's a bit of a weird anomaly with Java in that when you're using an interface, you have to specify that it implements that interface. However, when you're creating a generic and you're specifying what that generic has to extend, you just use extend for both classes and interfaces. See, the obvious kind of thing would be that this should surely match this signature here. Our objects extend the Cloud Database Zone object, and they implement has ID. However, that doesn't work. So for whatever reason, I don't know the reasonings, and I'm sure someone would be able to tell me. But for whatever reason, the signature to use here is to just use the extends, and then use an and to say, well, it extends this, and it also extends this. Don't know why that is. It's a little confusing and seems incorrect to me, but there we go. That is what it is. So we've done this. That now means that our T object, when we're using it down in here, our object of instance T, we know that it will have a getID method. We know that anyway, but we're now programmatically saying it will have that method. So that means that this now works, and we no longer get the error that we were receiving. Now, as far as I can remember, I'm pretty sure, yes. So the other thing that I did change, there was one other thing that I changed. We had been passing in this an instance of the user object. Now, I've changed that to pass in the class of the user object, because that's the only thing we actually needed from that, was basically when we're creating our queries, we need to say what type of object we're querying. And that's how we've done that. So that has cleaned it up a bit. So I'm pretty sure that's all the changes that we did. But that is now working, as you can see. And it's asking for the authentication code, which again, we will wait for. It will come through in a minute. 75881. And there we go. We are now into our home fragment, which, if you remember, didn't really have a lot going for it. But that is where we're at. So the next step is definitely going to be creating a post. We need to be able to create a post, and we need to be able to sort of save that data. So we've got our generic Cloud Database Manager now. So we'll be able to make an instance of this for the post object type and do all that saving stuff. That's fine. So it really is more of the kind of code side. So in our UI here, we've got all these different fragments that kind of be pre-set up for us basically when we created the activity. And we've got the feed activity here. So let's have a little look what we got going on here. So as you can see, we have this action bar button, which has got the picture of a male icon. I don't think that's actually particularly bad, but we might want to change that as well. Now, do we have a UI element for that? I'm guessing we do. That would make sense. Yeah, there we go. So we've got this UI element down here, and we can definitely change the icon that's being used and possibly pick something that's more suited to what we want. I don't know, just kind of a message icon, really. Yeah, I mean, that icon does work. That's true. There we go. That'll work. Nice send button. And there we go. That's regenerated. So yeah, so basically we have got that. We can change the icon there. That's all in there quite nicely. And in our home feed activity, this is where we've got the on click to do something. So I think in terms of keeping it simple, we are going to use a sort of dialogue, much the same way as we have with our authentication dialogue. And we'll just create a simple view to enter your text for the post. So at the moment, posts in our app are going to be text only. We will look at media, but right now it is very much just text only. So let's have a look at that. Let's have a look in the authentication manager at how we handled that before. That's with this alert dialog here. So we're actually going to probably just take that, gives it a bit of an idea, and we're going to create a method back here to do stuff with that, and we're going to do that. So we want to have a look and think about everything that's going on here. So yes, we're going to create another the Java class. We're going to call that post manager, because that can also then be used to get the posts and all that kind of stuff. So I think that makes the most sense to me. And also we'll have the callback and everything else like that. So we can implement that straight off, and we're going to have it implement for post, and we'll add in the methods. So import class, please, thank you. And that's all that. Let's set up. And in terms of, it's going to be very similar actually. So we might even find that we end up kind of making a base manager class, depending on how these classes go. We'll see, but that's quite a likely thing that probably will happen. But we want to kind of create its own constructor. We don't need that. We don't need any of that actually. So we do actually only need the context at this point. So like I say, it's a bit different. And the database manager creation as well. So let's do that. We will also have a toaster. That will be useful, and the context. Like that. And we're doing that, not post, not user. And oh, of course, yeah. Okay, and we've got our sort of constructor set up, and I think that makes it good to go essentially. So we will then make sure we create an instance of that here, and this is the feed activities. This is definitely going to be where a lot of this happens, so we definitely need a copy of the post manager, and that is going to be initialized in here. I'm going to do that first. And we've got what we need. We need context of this. We need oh, it's just this. Yeah, that's all we need. And then the post manager is going to have this auto dialog method, which we haven't created yet, so we'll do that next. Okay. So I don't think we really need a message. It's quite clear what that is, and we just post go, and then we've got a cancel button. A cancel button, which I don't really think we need to do anything, because the cancel button is just going to close. And then here we'll have post, and we'll go from there. And right, okay, so we can then obviously we'll rename this to make a bit more sense, and it's going to be Well, this is called auth code dialog at the moment, but we'll call it post dialog. And we'll call that post dialog. Probably should have a public class. Which then calls post dialog. I think that sounds reasonable to be. There we go. And that's going to create this right post. Post field. Post field. Post. So now, yeah, I think that makes sense. So we take the string. We probably do also just want to. Well, no, I think we'll go down the route of whatever the user enters is what they want to send. Whether or not that is actually the case or not is a separate issue. So we'll assume that it is what they want to send. And that's kind of given us this post string. So we can now go about actually sending that post. And it's going to be very similar in most respects to our kind of register setup, where we have save registered user, where we generate a user and then upsert it. Basically, that's what's going on here. And then you've got the callback for that. So we've got that. So we'll have private method called save post, and that's just going to take a string, and we will call that there. That. And basically we are going to create a new instance of the post, which we will call post save new post, and then we need to set all the fields on that. So if I remember rightly, yeah, we can literally do something very similar. Not precisely the same to that. Like that. And then we've got, what else have we got? What else have we got that we need to set? Set content, which is post. And then we need the user ID for the user that is sending this post, which is obviously ourselves. So that's going to be the user that is logged in. Now, if we basically we will use the shared preferences to get that. I want to just see, how did we handle? Yeah, we just literally just. So we're gonna. This should probably be extracted at some point as well, I should say, because we're now using it in lots of different places. So that is definitely something that needs to happen. And that's going to be context. And then we can get the where are we, main feed, and then it's just, yeah, so we can just get the user ID, which is an integer. So I'm gonna say post to save dot set user ID will be preferences dot get int go defaulting to 0. Let's move that up there. There we go. And then we just need to database manager dot upsert the post, like so. Now that kind of all makes sense. So what's going to happen is we're going to upsert the user, and of course it's going to, the post rather. We've been talking about users for so long now that we do have other elements available. So let's try that again. So what's going to happen now is we're going to take our returned post object, and we would then do something with that. We will add that as part of the kind of list view that we're going to create. We're not there yet though, so for now we'll just kind of leave that to that point so we can create some posts and show them working. So okay, well, we'll give it a go. Let's bring this up. We can write our post. I really like cheese. Post it. Everything seems to have worked. Okay, so we have set up the posting of a post. So we now need to query the posts, get a list of posts, and do something with that. Initially, we're just going to get all posts. That isn't really sort of by the by. We'll just get a list of posts. We're not going to worry about so much with things like, well, with more detail than that right now, I think is what I'm thinking. We have got this idea of following, so eventually it will be just getting the posts that you are of someone that you are following. And that's a more sort of detailed query, but right now we're just going to use the sort of generic guess all that we created. So in our feed activity, this is going to be something that we want to obviously do when we open the feed activity, because we need to get our list of follows, but the list of posts. So we're going to have a list of posts. We will call posts, and that is going to be our data source. Come on, cute. That's going to be our data source for our feed view, obviously. So that makes sense. So what we'll do is in the post manager, we are going to need to, so we need to have basically a callback past that. So we've got our callbacks here to get from the cloud database manager into the post manager, but then we need to obviously push that back to the UI. Now, we could do that as part of the post manager, but I'm feeling like there's going to be other places where we might want to use the post manager. So I think it makes sense for us to have something that we kind of to have an interface that we implement for anything that's using this post manager. I think that makes the most sense. That brings us straight back up to the activity then. So we will create another interface, quite similar actually. Down here, we're going to have an interface that's just basically, A, it's specifically about the post, and B, it will be just post callback. We'll just call it post callback. So we've got all our different, and we'll have that for now like that. I think that's a good place to start. It makes sense that we can then kind of replicate what's going on here and pass it through to the front, but we'll possibly change that as we go along. We'll see. And essentially then, just like we have in the cloud manager where we have an instance of that callback, we'll have an instance of that callback in here, like so, and that's post callback. Should actually definitely capitalize that. We're going to keep naming conventions. And that's going to be, that's going to be part of the constructor. And we're going to like so. And as far as we're concerned, the implementation of these is just going to pass it through for now. So we're just going to do that and give it that, and do the same for the others as well. So that way we are passing it back up the stack to the front end. I think, you know, that's a good place to start anyway. There we go. And then we just need our feed activity to implement callback manager, add the unimplemented methods like that. And here we will do that. Perfect. And we are kind of good to go there. So basically, we can, from in here, request all the posts, and then we're going to get it back on this in this on query, where we can then do something with it. So, and the same with when we create a new post. So those are both. Yeah, it makes sense. So I think essentially, why is that? No, wait a minute. Wait a second. We don't need to worry about that. So we're not doing generics there. I knew there was something wrong there. Implement methods. Yeah. There we go. Okay, that's better. Cool. So one thing that we will do is basically add to our list of posts. Dot add at the start the absurd object. So that way we're building up the list once we've added, you know, so your post that you create comes up to the top, irrelevant of whether or not it's in the process of doing a refresh of the list, which I think makes the most sense. And then in here, we can just do like that. Yeah, we don't really want to be using the raw. It is post. It is a list of type post, so we should probably define that to make it a bit clearer. Well, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching till the end. I really do appreciate it. If you have enjoyed the video, please do drop a like, comment down below, and make sure you're subscribed. Most of the people that view these videos aren't subscribed, so please do, and you'll get notifications for all future videos. Next episode, we'll be looking at the kind of next step, building a bit of the UI, and what other services we can use to improve our application even further. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.